Web3 with Me is a discussion-style podcast about the ins and outs of Web 3.0, hosted by Zach French, known as Off Edge in the verse. From crypto to NFTs, DAOs to DeFi, we cover the abstract philosophical promises and the new business models enabled in this new decentralized world. Subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or watch the show on YouTube. Thanks and enjoy.
Zach French is a bar-certified attorney, and nothing expressed by Zach during Web3 with Me shall be considered legal advice. All the opinions expressed by Zach and his guests are solely their own opinions. All content in Web3 with Me is for informational purposes only. Zach and his podcast guests may maintain positions in the securities discussed during Web3 with Me.
My guest today is a special one, Joshua Sobel, known as Aw Heck in the verse. He is a dear friend and someone I am so honored to call my mentor. He's an accomplished producer, producing 8 feature films. Most recently, Phil Tippett's hellish nightmare, Mad God, which will be available in the US and UK on Shudder in June. He was the American ambassador for virtual reality at Cannes Next in 2018 and 2017, and most recently, he's been a student of Web3. Pairing his skills of being a retail investor, risk-taking producer, and lifetime collector of fine art, Josh has built one of the most impressive NFT collections out there. Also, Josh is a key contributor of BeansDAO, an experimental DAO focused on the proliferation of decentralized IP, which I am also a key contributor for. I hope you'll enjoy this episode. Now for my conversation with Josh. LFG, baby. Time to start vibing. Oh, heck. Welcome to Web3 with me, sir.
Sir, thank you for having me.
Good. It's such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Honestly, I think we've been talking about podcasts for 6 months at least, on and off. But now we got a show to be on. So now everybody has to listen to us.
Well, thanks to anyone who is listening to this.
Well, cool. Well, I know you pretty well, but I want to start a little bit with a founding story. Specifically around Web3, but feel free to go far as back as you want, as much as you want to share. That would be helpful for our audience.
Cool. My name is Josh. I go by Aw Heck in the metaverse. And I started my career, I guess, as a film producer, which was my day-to-day 9 to 5, so to speak. And I also, at the same time, was very interested in art collecting and have always been fascinated with art. So it's always been something that I've tried to do on the side. And I collected an artist by the name of Kenny Scharf, who I grew up loving. He was like one of the first artists that I purchased a print from and, got it framed and put it on the wall and just kind of felt how different my environment was, as well as my mood when I was around art that I enjoyed versus the art that you can find at any kind of home goods store or just decor store that you grow up around in so many environments. And my very close friend, Gavin Shapiro, reached out to me, and this was in about July of 2020. And was like, man, I just got invited to put my art up on this new website that says that they're going to sell it digitally. And you're an art collector. Like, what do you think? So I checked it out and I saw that Kenny Scharf had art there. And I was like, dude, Kenny's doing this. And Kenny's like, he's like an OG, he was like boys with Basquiat and, Warhol and some of the great in like the 80s when he was first coming up, Keith Haring. And I was like, Gavin, you should definitely take this seriously. So he started minting with Nifty Gateway back in, I think it was like July of 2020. I at the time had no interest in collecting digital art. I didn't really understand why anyone would want to collect digital art when you can collect paintings or sculptures.
I can't put it on my wall.
Exactly, man. So it was like, what would be the purpose of doing this? But I saw that, there was a market for it. Gavin started to get work and collectors. And at that point, I was like, man, I might want to collect a piece of Gavin's. So at that point is when I kind of just plunged into the space and into the world. And here we are, like a year and a half later. Uh, my life has kind of changed, but it's still that same kind of like, curiosity that led me here.
It's pretty cool. Do you remember like when you were first starting to buy into the space, what if there was specific art that made you feel the way you felt or similar feeling to when you first bought?
Anger. There was so much anger when I first came in. I mean, it was like that curiosity, and then trying to buy a piece of Gavin's art, for instance, and not being able to, just feeling like I was so infuriated, to be honest. Like when I first started collecting,
the first domination.
Exactly, man. It was like I felt like my soul had just lifted from my body, and I was just completely seeing red. I mean, it's totally infuriating. You're waiting in one of these, it's the waiting room where, I mean, for me, it was like similar to the emotion of trying to buy tickets for your favorite artist when you were growing up, and just like waiting on Ticketmaster, watching the clock, your heart is beating, and you feel like you're going to get front row seats, but you end up just like in the worst nosebleed back section possible, just kind of lucky that you even got in because all your friends were like, it's sold out in like 5 minutes or whatever. So that kind of same nostalgic emotion of just like, I need to be able to understand what's going on here and find a way to conquer it in some ways. That is what kind of drove my real initial curiosity. And once I started to just connect with works and just find things that I thought were interesting and compelling, I started to buy them and look at them and see how I felt. And it was like a very similar high that you would feel when you're collecting any kind of artwork.
That is amazing that you're able to, one, identify the emotions, right?
For sure.
And two, use those emotions to fuel your like kind of rabbit hole or thrust into the space. I want to come back to, because I have a sense, at least from my experience, that that those same feelings are still around. There's
Definitely.
Domination on a regular basis.
Definitely. Yeah.
But I want to switch gears more and just kind of round out your founding story. The way that, I mean, we first talked on the phone.
Yeah.
But after we got to know each other and I bought my first NFT with you, which was amazing experience. Blau Faces, shout out. Thank you.
Totally.
You invited me to a group chat. And at that point in my life, personally, I was starting to be a believer that the best way to participate and learn is to find the individuals that are interested in the same things and have small chats as much as possible. Now, at first it started as like a mastermind group, but it's so hard to get everybody together. But the group chat was participate when you can, right? Now you have to participate sometimes, which you're very good at regulating, but it's a long-winded way of asking, like, what have you always been a group chatter organizer? Or is this something that really formed in the NFTs? Like, how did you start to do that? Because it's so brilliant.
I mean, dude, yeah, I think communication is vital to any community, any project, any company, any business. That's first and foremost. So once we were able to like establish a core group of people who all, shared this interest and wanted to learn more, I think it was vital to starting like a little WhatsApp group. I didn't even know what Discord was,
Me
back
either,
then.
Dude.
So it was like, yeah, let's do WhatsApp. And that's kind of what I use because, when I'm making these films internationally, WhatsApp was always the messenger choice preferred because it was over the internet and we didn't have to have like the same cell phone service or anything. So when you're in, the middle of Mexico and Irapuato shooting, or you're over in the Philippines in Manila, in Obundo, or, somewhere that's just kind of off your typical cell phone grid, WhatsApp has always kind of been there. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of just like such a major component of my everyday life, that kind of taking it into art collecting and into what, would now be this Web3 space that we're in. Just finding a way where we could all be on the exact same page, getting ready for whatever drop was happening that day. And I mean, you remember when we were first getting into this, we were all just completely like hyper addicted, which I would hope that we've learned something from that experience and
it's gotten more spaced out.
Yeah. That was like the
one a little bit better
thing that, looking back, I wouldn't say I regret it, because man, we were just like, we were so excited, and we felt like, this is just this completely revolutionary way of storing ownership and proving ownership. And once all of those like light bulbs and epiphanies started to go off, you feel like you're already just backtracking and trying to keep up with these personas that you see online, these anon figures that are almost like these cult-like figures on the internet, that everything they do is right, and all of the projects that they touch turn to gold, and they've been in crypto for 10 plus years, so who are you to even try and compete with them? But it was like, hey dude, like, we all had our own interest in investing, and we all had our own at least like, for me, it was like I had been investing for 10 years before this, and it's always been something that I tried to stay on top of, because as a film producer, you want to try and have shared interests with your investors. And so many of them, wanted to talk about which companies were, going to give them the highest return of investment, and, where they were getting their largest dividends from. And like all these things like were things that I always just wanted to pay attention to, so I could be in that conversation. So, when I came to crypto, which mind you, I wanted to get into a while ago, but being that I'm in film production and a film producer on like risky indie thrillers and horror films, which just have enough inherent risk to them, I've tried to be a very like measured and calculated investor who, tries to be quite conservative with my investing practice. So yeah, I tried to like come into the crypto space from that angle, but my traditional financial advisors were like, you cannot do anything like digital cryptocurrency money, which they, obviously have no education in. And they're
especially then, I imagine
of course
you're talking about like 2017, 2018, I'm guessing, like the first
2015 was really, I think, the first time that I brought it up, and they were just like, no way, dude, what are you even talking about? So, I felt somewhat I don't know, just like subservient to these voices of advisors that I had around me that, my family had trusted. So I wanted to take their guidance I trusted them. They were the professionals. So it was like, I'm going to do that. But yeah, I forgot kind of where we were. We went on a little tangent.
We're talking about the power of groupthink, and you're identifying what foundations you had that made you want to, like, that allowed you to start putting together people in the NFT space in a group chat. And the reason it sounds like, if you could, is that you're starting to take your own, like, reins of your own decisions when it comes to investments.
Yeah.
So having this group of like-minded people, as opposed to, financial advisor who's passive at, Merrill Lynch or something like that, right? Is like, you're starting to like basically build your resources, if you will, to try and do this. And it sounds like it was a good balance of what you were doing, because you were taking, I'm in a risky business to an extent, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
these
definitely.
films, you don't know how well the films are going to do. So you're conservative with the money you earn from them, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of go into this NFT space where it's like, I mean, who the hell knows what's going to happen? I mean, I don't think you got to be rocket scientists to know that this is going to have massive power laws and massive fat tail returns for very few people, where you will be looking at very few pieces that will return the fund. Right.
Exactly.
So it's cool. It's kind of like once you started making the decisions, then you kind of assimilated back to the decisions to do risky films. You're doing risky investments. And having Gavin, I'm sure was helpful, because I mean, at least what it was for me when I first got into like hear the artist perspective, was super helpful.
Well, it was incredibly helpful, but it was also, we were all at that point just doing it for a number of reasons, but that initial enthusiasm was just like tons of excitement, and we we were able to take his knowledge of the visual effects landscape that he had spent the past 15 years working up in, to then be able to transition into this new space that was really almost like built on top of that. So, or at least built on top of that experience with all of the visual artists and motion graphics designers who are now these very high profile artists.
Well, thanks for that, Josh. And let's take a look at some of Gavin's work. I mean, it is the most adorable, amazing to watch. My kid loves it. All the flamingos, the penguins, it's gorgeous. Now that we've got kind of your founding story and we know what really drives you and how you're making these decisions, I want to hear how you're participating in this Web3. Like, what is your role? What does your day-to-day look like? Where are you spending your time? What is a day in the life of Aw Heck?
Wow. I don't say that every day has as much routine as you might think it does, but to me it's like just like with anything else, just following that curiosity. So with NFTs specifically, it's like that you can only have so many different communities that you're following every day, or that you're giving your attention and your consideration, because otherwise like it's going to be so easy to get burnt out. So I feel like I try and check Discord similarly to how I check emails. And the way that I have found in the past that works for me is that I have all notifications turned off on absolutely everything. So nothing ever interrupts my train of thought, or, whatever I'm trying to be present doing. So like I'm only checking Discord, or I'm only checking email at times when it's on my mind, or it's something that I'm curious about. So I think also like, to not have notifications, you have to check your phone somewhat like a maniac. So every few hours for sure I'll be circling back and seeing if there's any new pings or those little red notifications that they send you. But otherwise I'm never like alerted by them on my computer. So unless it's honestly, except for
I totally
Pack.
agree with that, by the way.
For Pack, I have Pack notifications on Discord set up. So like if you hear a notification, Pack has said something, the great, and wise. I'm not,
some of our audience might not know what they are.
Yeah, I would question that, but yeah, okay. Pack is, kind of our North Star of sorts within this world. And I remember looking at like a list of the top crypto artists right when I was first getting into it, and Beeple was kind of like, the prodigal son. Everyone was really googly eyed over Beeple, and he was gearing up for that massive sale and everything. And I looked at number two and I was like, who's the number two crypto artist that might be hidden in the shadows somewhat. And that was Pac. And I looked at Pac's work and I was like, this is something that I could see the art world, like the more traditional art world, understanding and getting behind, because he felt to me like it was just a real glowing example of minimalism. And minimalism has such a rich history within art history, and such a rich and profound appreciation, even to the point where it frankly pisses me off. There are some minimalist artists that I just hate for a number of reasons, who I'm not going to shout out now, but
you don't want to start a hit list?
No, I mean, there's one artist that I hate. I with such a real and profound, no, I mean, I guess I'll have to say it's Carl Andre. I fucking hate and loathe Carl Andre. I think he murdered Ana Mendieta, who's one of the most important, significant Cuban artists, and just profound voice. And then whatever, this guy got acquitted of her murder. And always it's something that I feel needs to be brought up, because such I go to museums and I see his work still displayed, and people are allowed to walk on it because it's just materials that are presented in their most minimal presentation. Usually it's just tiles on the floor or something really stupid. And that's frankly what I thought of when I first saw the dot of Pac, just I was like, God damn it, what the hell is this, this super minimalist? But then the more that I studied it and the more that I came to understand Pac's entire, oeuvre of work, I was just kind of blown away by how conceptual it was. And it started drifting away from reminding me of Carl Andre, and more so of Bruce Nauman or any of the other conceptualist artists that I love so much. And Pac, at that time, their work was still somewhat accessible in the marketplace. So I just started collecting their pieces, and I made some significant investments at this time, so that I could have some cool pieces in the future that I thought were very much of the time, let's just say. So I started really getting into Pac, and yeah, they kind of became as you would say, one of the branches on my bonsai tree, which I think that's such an amazing analogy that you've given me, or anecdote. I don't know if you've shared that yet with your listeners here, but
and I'll be honest, it's not mine.
Yeah, everyone steals everything.
Yeah, it is a friend of mine who also has a very, very popular podcast. So cool. If you ever are out there pounding the table, they were the creators of the bonsai, but it really is the best analogy. And I'm sure they weren't the creators, but whatever. That's where I got it from.
Yeah.
But it is a really great analogy, because for the audience, when you're trimming a bonsai, you just making sure it's not growing out in too much of one direction. So sometimes when things get overgrown, hence your exposure to Pac or your exposure to tech stocks, right, in their context, right? Yeah. You trim it back a little bit, and you let a new branch grow, and you put that into a new idea, if you will. And totally. Pac has used that analogy to describe their work.
Yeah.
Right? Pac has said, there is not always an end game, and this is not a direct quote, but there's not always an end game to my collections. It's I'm starting a branch. Yeah. Where the branch goes is up to my collectors. They're making their collectors the creators, right? I mean, this sweatshirt is a great example of that. It's called FOMO verse. It was a somewhat random drop. We knew it was coming a couple days ahead of time. And I love the dot.
My coaster. Just a great prop for our, for our podcast.
I mean, if I could, I'll tell you a really funny story
Please,
of
man.
this. You probably know this, but okay. So I was over at my neighbor's house when the drop was happening, and all Pack had told us was like a broad range. I think it was like maybe 12 hours, maybe a little less than 12 hours of time when the drop would happen for FOMO. And we knew, and then, so there was a Spaces that Siblings, and Siblings is a alpha Discord.
Shout out JC.
Shout out JC for sure. Siblings were the OG Pack collectors, right? Now there's a bunch of different stuff around Ash, but anyways, they're having a marathon of a Spaces until they announced it. So I'm go over to my neighbor's house, and I've taken my kid over there. The kids are playing, and my neighbor hears my phone on. He's like, "What are you listening to?" Because like, who listens to stuff while they're with other people? I'm like, well, actually, it's a Spaces, and I start to explain to them this whole FOMOverse thing. Well, about 2 hours later, I was like, I need to go home. I gotta get the baby bottle or something like that. I walk in, and all I hear is, "The website's been released." And I quickly open my computer, hoping my kid's okay. And I open it up, and I get it, and I click it, and it's like, "You're too late." And I'm like, dang. But let me try and reload the page. That was the trick. You had to reload the page, then connect your wallet, then get it. Then you would get in there. And so this limited release of like 1,200 or something FOMO parcels, I was lucky enough to get one. And that one is number 777. And we all know how edition sizes have their nice little aside. But just an example of kind of the stuff that Pack does. Pack went from being like the minimalist, contemporary, aesthetically speaking kind of artist to being the most prolific user of the medium as part of Pack's art, which I think just kind of lends itself to the brilliance, right?
Totally.
Pretty cool. So let me ask you this. What are I know that we both are involved in a bunch of different, what we call layer ones, which are different blockchains upon which you can purchase NFTs. The most popular being Ethereum. Then there's also Solana, which has gotten a lot of press of late.
I don't like Solana.
Yeah, I mean, neither do I. I've not had a good experience on Solana.
Neither have I have to say, like, I tried to get into it. I've got some, friends who have pointed me towards it, but I have not had a positive experience on that blockchain. So
there's a lot of nuances.
I can't stand by, I don't know. I guess they're clean or whatever, but I haven't seen anything that I've really been excited about built.
Don't you feel like you hear a ton more rug pulls and a ton more? I mean, don't get me wrong, ETH is full of its own scams for sure.
I think also so my new dislike for Solana really has to do with OpenSea taking their NFTs over Tezos and feeling like they almost made it like it was like Solana versus Tezos in just like, maybe I think maybe I made this whole thing up in my mind, but I think I'm such like a Tezos diehard at this point that anything that's taking away from Tezos getting the attention that it so desperately deserves, and it just becomes like something that I can't support. So sorry, Sol fans, but if you want to send me anything, my address is domination of my soul. Domination of my .soul.
Did you actually get it?
Yeah, I did get it. I think I also got like dominated .soul as well, but just to have for like, I think like for at least 10 or 20 years, I will be dominated by soul. You can put that down below.
Yeah, but
okay, so to stop talking about Solana.
So let's talk about Tezos, because I know that is very close to your heart, not just because of your comments, but because of the raw art that is available there, and the entry points I think is helpful. But how do you approach Tezos versus Ethereum versus other layer ones? Where are you spending
Tezos,
time now?
yeah, Tezos is really my champion at this point. I feel like it's such an amazing blockchain to work on, and I love all the added benefits of it being clean and it being sustainable and it being good for the environment, which I think so much of the crypto space is just a little bit ignorant towards, the amount of destruction there is, and how heavy of a toll it generates towards the environment, even though, like, I obviously believe in the underlying technology and think that it, is worth what is happening right now, and everyone obviously working towards finding a solution. Tezos is just such an amazing blockchain to buy NFTs from, frankly. I mean, that's how I know it. And it kind of reminds me of like these blockchains. I view them almost like cities or neighborhoods in a way. And, with a cool neighborhood, the first thing that'll happen is it'll get like a cool coffee shop. There'll be tons of artists hanging out. Art will start appearing on the walls. It's like what happened in Soho or in Williamsburg or in Wynwood, even like downtown LA and like the arts district there. Like there are these artistic little, communities that'll spawn that'll make these neighborhoods very cool. And in Tezos, I was attracted to it for the art. There were just these artists that I really wanted to collect who were minting on there. So I had to like navigate all these obstacles of, figuring it out. And none of my friends were collecting on Tezos at this point. I feel like I was one of the first out of like our little community to just like be like, all right, no, I'm gonna figure this out and do it, because there are these few artists that like I loved who are minting on it. And yeah, it's been probably the blockchain that I've collected the most on, that I've supported the most on, and I use it the most, way more than Ethereum, probably at least 10 times more than Ethereum. So
Okay, so Tezos, I kind of feel the same way. Tezos it's just more pure, It's like really, if you're here for the art, you go to Tezos.
totally.
We'll have some links in the show notes to the various Tezos platforms. There's a few of them now. I think most popular probably Object at this point.
Yeah.
OBKT.
Versum, Object. I mean, it's kind of where I would point anyone who's just getting into NFTs to start, because you're able to go through that euphoria of just collecting and amassing, multiple pieces in your collection for a fraction of what you'd have to spend on Ethereum. And
let's put that in perspective, Josh. What is like the average Tez piece that you purchase? How much is a Tezos worth? What's the range? And then, how much are you usually spending on a piece?
Yeah, when I first started collecting on Tezos was about $2 a Tez, so it was like you could load up your wallet for, a couple $1,000 and you would have 1,000 Tezos to go out there and go crazy. And most of the pieces that we first started collecting were like 1 Tezos a pop. So
or free.
Yeah, or like, less than 5. So, you were able to be collecting for, to speak in dollars, like $15, and gas fees were like a few cents. So experimenting and just being able to get a hang of this whole wild world of blockchain with Tezos was kind of like a huge lifesaver, because when we first started out, we spent, or like, I mean, I'll just talk about myself, but I spent so much money on Nifty Gateway because they had access to credit cards, and it was like I could just put in my credit card and spend $1,000 here, 5,000 there, buy a fuck render piece here, or another Mad Dog here, and it's like the next thing you know, you've spent like more than you've ever. I mean, for me, this was like I spent more money on Nifty Gateway in a month than I think I've spent in my entire life collecting fine art. And I would spend so much time and scrutinization at these art shows over, a painting for a few $1,000s. And on Nifty Gateway, they would just tell me in the morning, like, yeah, you're getting this, you're getting this new piece from Shapiro or from Pack or from any of these, Rafik or anyone. It's like a few $1,000s. And just like, yeah, of course I'll do it. It's an addition. Like, yeah.
It's hard to compare it to real life purchases too.
Really,
you go in there, you're like, well, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to get the extra whatever at this restaurant. And you're like, I just went to this drop and dropped $1,000.
Yeah,
I could work over $10 for the extra one.
I would park like 10 minutes away to avoid, parking fees that are like $5, when I'm going somewhere. But like to mint something that's in demand, you see me like, pumping up the gas to 300 Gwei, like it's nothing. So I guess I learned, I don't want to say that I learned like my degenerate side from watching, who I consider to be like, one of the best traders that I've learned everything from. I think that's a better way to preface, what I've learned from this person. But no, man, when I first started watching Jack trade, and this is Jack Machka, he's another just like one of the people who came into my life shortly after I got obsessed with NFTs, who Gavin introduced me to. They were close friends, and Gavin could tell that I was getting obsessive about this. He was like, dude, you should meet my boy Jackma. He does the same thing. And we started like a little group between the three of us. And that, with those two OGs, they're like the OGs of OGs as far as I'm concerned. And they've been kind of like the ones who have been guiding me. Gavin's so much more conservative, and he's still very
he's about the art.
He's still Gavin, but Jack is like Jack, especially with the apes and everything, we've created a bit of a monster at to, I mean, especially within myself, will just ape into things now that we have this persona of an ape. But yeah, Jack got me into that whole world. He like, yeah, I was completely just focused on, NFTs and Nifty Gateway and on Tezos and stuff. And then, I think Jack was a whole other conversation that we could have. We started talking about other L1s, but I think naturally we can just bring up this, and how he kind of came into the mix. Because Gavin said, there's this friend of mine, Jack. I got to know him in New York, and like along with a lot of other artists who we are now friends with. But Jack had this NFT project called Crypto Beans, and he was like, dude, you should check out the Crypto Beans and support my friend. There are these like cute little profile pictures. And I looked at them and I was like, yeah, these things are cute. Like, I'll support your friend, dude. I mean, it was that's kind of what it was when we were first getting started too. So we bought these Crypto Beans, and that's how I met Jack. And Jack opened up my eyes to this whole other side of NFTs. And he's like, the real reason why I got like even more obsessive into all this stuff, because he introduced me to the Bored Ape Yacht Club, and like,
that's a life changer.
It changed my life, dude. The guy changed my life.
For listeners, do you mind telling us what the Bored Ape floor is right now?
I'll give the whole. No, I'll give the whole story.
Give me the story. I want the listeners to realize the impact of the value creation here. If they're in the space, they've probably heard of it, but let's assume some haven't.
For sure. So I'd gotten this crypto bean I bought it, and then we started this little chat. We were talking about like the different projects and things that we were into, and Jack must have minted like 20 Bored Apes and was like, guys, you guys gotta come into this Discord and hang out with the apes. They are totally crazy. It's probably the most exciting Discord that I'm in. You guys need to do it. And Gavin was like, yeah, like I'm a little busy with making art, and yeah.
When was this? What month? What year?
This was in May. This was like the beginning of May of last year,
2021.
of 2021.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Gav was busy, with making art and doing his thing, and I was just, distracted with everything else that was going on. I was like, we don't need to do this. This is it. We were also like,
it was in the middle of a dip. It was a middle.
Yeah, I was doing my thing on Tezos. I felt very like, I felt like I was doing the right thing. I was supporting these, young artists and budding artists, and I was like, this is kind of where my heart is and where my passion is. I'm gonna kind of stick to this. Gavin was like, I'm making my art, I'll support like my friends and the people around me, but like I'm not trying to get into like, these kind of projects. And Jack was like, you guys do not get it. You must understand that like this is the coolest thing that I've been part of. And he was pretty much just like, here, and check your wallets. And he sent Gavin and I each an ape. And I think he must have sent a bunch of other friends of his an ape at the same time, which like honestly at the time the apes were like $800 or $900. So this was like one of the craziest gifts that anyone has ever sent me in my life. And
what's it worth right now?
Yeah, it's worth a lot. I don't even want to think about it. It's worth
100
crazy
minimum.
Yeah, at minimum. Yeah. So it was like he sent me that, and I was like, you know what, I think that's so cool. Like I'm gonna see what's up with these apes. Like I'm gonna make it my profile picture. I'm gonna lean into it. So I made it my profile picture, and like the next, like that night, I had like hundreds of new followers and like hundreds of new people like posting on my Twitter, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. I remember like going into the Discord and like seeing the behavior of this group of people and just thinking like, Jack was right. This is awesome. Like I need to do whatever I can to get another one of these apes so that it can look like me and I can feel like, I'm really a part of it. So that's when I decided to buy another one, a cowboy one that I can have my sticker, of course, up. I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, I got one on my computer too.
Oh yeah. And yeah, I decided to get that. I decided to make it my profile picture, and that is what really got, yeah, that's like the moment that changed my life in the NFT space, is when I guess my personification, aw heck, overtook my reality of Josh, and I just like dove into it. I went with it. And a couple months later, after seeing the trajectory of that investment and how successful it was, and then just the dog that came with it, and then they sent you an airdrop of a serum, and then mutants came, and then the ape coin came, and throughout the whole time just kind of holding on for dear life, as it really felt like there was like a rocket that was lit underneath your ass. That was at the time, especially like back in December, that was, I guess that was before ApeCoin drops or anything, but I was like, I've never found this much success in anything in my life, and I need to take this as seriously as I possibly can to recognize this opportunity which is in front of me. And perhaps it was just me winning the lottery, but I'm going to be paying attention from here on out every day and taking this just as seriously as I would take any other, film responsibility or job responsibility in my life. And that was like that real like moment when the gears kind of switched, and I was like, all right, like we're gonna do this. We're gonna figure out this Web3 and really become this monkey picture and see what that does to my life. So,
and it's worked out okay for you. I got to share that ape
so
coin
far.
moment with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's magical. And it was a lot of stuff in life is luck, right, and timing and what have you, but it takes a special set of hodling balls to be able to watch these things go from $900 to hundreds of thousands of dollars and not to sell. I'm
Yeah, I agree. Like I think, everyone's situation is also different. We're just getting we're still in like in pandemic, and it really displaced a lot of our lives. And everyone's situation is very different, but I think it I'm proud of some, like, to be someone who pretty much sacrificed all of my, pretty much everything to make my life as a producer work and happen. And when you're making these movies, you kind of have to give everything, your entire life, to them. So like I didn't have an apartment or a place that I was living. So I moved back home in the pandemic, and with my family, and we have a great relationship. And that's also what's like allowed me to put all of my money and time into the space. I don't think everyone's like, as committed to that lifestyle as, someone who is like me and lives in their mom's garage. But, it was the kind of decision that I felt like I didn't understand why I would pay rent during a pandemic and just like be alone in an apartment. So I just decided to stay with family, and I'm so glad that I did, because I would not have been able to, if I was paying for an apartment, like I would not have been able to have the money to spend on NFTs. So,
your industry. I mean, it was pretty much cut off for a period of time, right?
Man, I mean, it's been really sad what's happened to
Film
the
industry, that is.
industry. And during the pandemic, I mean, some people have been able to thrive and to make it happen. But for projects like mine, who needed a bit of extra love in a foreign country to get finished, it was like we had to just stop and wait until we could be able to get back there and finish the production. So the good news is we're finally starting to talk about finishing our movie. So I'm excited for that, and I think it's gonna be fun because we'll have some, we'll probably have some NFT, not I wouldn't say like an NFT component for this film, but like we'll have some like ENS addresses and stuff in the credits, which I think will be pretty funny.
It will be. But you want to tell us a little bit about the project? I mean, chill,
Yeah,
baby.
of course. Yeah, this is a film that we started shooting in 2019 in Manila, and it has just a working title right now. It's called Night Walk, but we then saw that there was like a Mickey Rourke movie called Night Walk, so we're like, we can't call it Night Walk. And then we also went to the Philippines and learned what night walkers were, and that's not what this movie is about either. So we were like, all right, we have to change the title. Haven't found a better title, but the film is essentially about a foreign news correspondent who travels to the Philippines to document the atrocities of the war on drugs, and sees something that she shouldn't have seen and documented it, and then is on the run from the corrupt government officials to release it before she's captured. It's like it's like a international action film of sorts, a crime drama. It's really cool. I'm really excited about the project, and we're that much closer to finishing it. So yeah, hopefully this next year it'll be able to premiere.
Are you going to be going back to Manila?
Personally, I'm not, because with this pandemic, it's too expensive and cost prohibitive to send our entire crew back there. So we're doing kind of it a little bit more like a skeleton operation, where we'll just send our absolute key personnel to the Philippines, and we'll have a whole production team over there who will be able to facilitate the day-to-day production while we here, operating it from Zoom. So it'll be interesting. But
out for Untitled.
Exactly.
That's awesome, though. I'm glad
a little bit of time.
Yeah. I'm excited for you. That's
thanks,
cool.
man. Thanks. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for kind of giving us the insights of your participation into the space.
Of course.
I want to get to some of the wisdom and insights, and I want to start with something that you've shared with me before. and let you share that with the audience, which is the 3 Ps.
Oh yes, of course,
the 3 Ps.
of course. So yeah, I guess like, when it comes to making any kind of investment with your time or with your money, these are 3 things that I like to consider, the most. And the 3 Ps, like the first being people. Number one, the people that you're investing in, the people that you're spending your time around, the people that you're learning from. That's number one. Really, there's no project or company that you could possibly invest in with this, great idea that would ever become a success without the people who are behind the scenes. So doing your homework and figuring out who these different influential figures are is priority number one, because then it makes everything that much easier thereafter. If you're just able to pick the right people to invest in or to listen to. The process, number two, I think, especially when it comes to art and evaluating how an artist is able to execute their materials through their creative process or through their business process, whatever it is. I think in inspecting that and seeing that it was coming from a place of integrity, good faith, and level measure is incredibly significant in evaluating whether or not you can, trust this person's perspective or, whatever piece of, art that you're judging or determining. And people, process. What was the other P that I was saying? There was another one.
Patience.
Yeah, it was patience. That was it. Patience is everything, man. That really is the defining attribute of your success in anything. I really think just in life, frankly, like you have to be able to practice patience, and you have to be able to, when you come up with a plan and you start to execute it, you have to trust that, trust that process and trust that you're well invested into the right time and the right pipeline. So to accomplish that, I mean, it's just really about trying to be present and not like getting FOMO by all of the distractions that are going to try and lure you, but to really just pay attention to the whispers in the peripheral, which are oftentimes the most influential signposts that you'll have. Especially like what I've learned from, producing movies is that, you'll definitely hear the loudest noise and the loudest sound, and it'll capture your attention. But in the same breath, you really need to pay attention to that whisper or that voice that is not as pronounced, or that sign that is not as emboldened on the wall, because oftentimes those whispers are really where the brilliance lies, and really where is like where you can learn some of the secrets of life. And if you're not really in touch with that like meditative and patient perspective, it's really easy to block those signs or those voices out. So having patience, listening, and being present, I would all just kind of like encapsulate into the patience P.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting. It's like a pyramid almost, right? On the base
Another
of the
P.
Yeah. The 3P pyramid, right?
Yeah.
On the bottom, you've got
scheme.
like, if you find the people you trust and do the work to make sure they're good people, and you build out a process, then it's just about trusting that process, which is the patience.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Which probably also be persistence. Let's have 7 P's when we get
Yeah,
to it.
we could write a whole book on the P's.
The P's
frankly.
of life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably a book that's been written on these things, but like we said, like everything is just stolen and regurgitated. Which is also kind of like the part of the blockchain that I love, is that everything's just like built on top of each other. Things are stolen all the time. It's all cool. Like that.
CCO.
Yeah, dude, CCO, like that whole just ideology is so exciting. And I feel very energized by that whole new canon that I feel like we are, a part of now.
Yeah, and I imagine some of the more serious NFT collectors are Dejins, as my favorite pronunciation. Credit to Lord,
of course.
Dejins. It's from Lord Truffington. Shout out.
Yeah, Lord Truffington.
I'm an NFT Dejin.
Wow, that's a good guy.
I know. Amazing person in space. Follow at Lord Truffington if you do not and you want to learn. Always does some amazing tweets around, like just like an artist spotlight for art he doesn't even own.
That's cool.
Yeah, and huge Pac supporter too, of course. That's how.
Yeah, that's how I know him. I know that he's another ape who loves Pac, who's a sibling.
I know we're gonna get Jack on the show soon. Maybe we can get Lord Truff on here too. And his
you should. He'd be a great guest.
Yeah.
And also JC, man, get JC on here.
That'd be great.
I would love to hear that episode. I just love listening to JC. I feel like I'm just gonna have a stagnant person in the room with the Pac circle to hear JC talk when Pac's in the room. It'd be great just to get a cardboard cutout of JC to have like in the background of the episodes. So nice.
Well, I wanted to dig in on something. You have your 3 P's, and the most important, I think, or the one on top, is patience, right? This is a space where patience is non-existent, right?
Somewhat, yeah.
People are constantly looking for updates. Win.
So annoying.
How do you deal with win culture and burnout?
I don't really I don't have the tolerance for the, that kind of immature disposition, because anyone who's building anything or producing any kind of quality asset that they're going to be introducing into the marketplace knows how long it takes to put something like this together. And just as we've grown up, as we've matured, as we've had different, for me, different movie titles that were announced that took years to come out, that you had to wait for, or even just like game titles when you're a gamer and you want like the sequel to, Breath of the Wild or something to come out, and you have to wait another year. I think, these are lessons that we can learn from life. And I think, when you go to like a theme park, for instance, and you're waiting online for the roller coaster, some of the most memorable moments with your whoever you're at, whatever theme park you're at, just talking and kind of waiting, and how special those times can be in between. So I try and find communities who are a bit more patient and understanding to the process. And I don't get bogged down in the immaturity of the voices in Discord or whatever. I also see how young so many people are in the space. I feel like we're old men at this point. And that was like one of those light bulbs that kind of went off for me when I was first starting to explore this stuff, was how many young people I started interacting with, and seeing just how many 10 to 15-year-olds are around in the space. So yeah, that makes me really bullish that this stuff is here for a long while, and that we are, you know, we are just only beginning, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, you can't get on any Instagram, what have you, and without hearing about a 13-year-old that made $1 million,
Exactly.
trading NFTs. Now that's the exception, folks. It's not the rule.
Exactly.
But yeah, it is. The youth is really adopting it. It meshes with whatever culture or vibe they're looking for. But it also leads to, when I was that age, not sounding like too old of a guy here. I feel like I'm shaking my fist saying slow down right now, but like
I'm an old man.
slow down, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
It's hard.
Yeah.
I get excited about everything.
Yeah.
I think
You're like a little puppy dog. You get very, very excited.
And I'm 36 years old in
Yeah.
a month, right? In a couple of months, right? Like
Yeah.
that's my personality, and I'll never lose that, but it also requires a lot more focus on self-control.
Yeah,
right.
totally.
And I've used you as that barometer many times. Thank you, sir.
You, man.
For what, going back to when you were talking about Jack, you are my Jack, right? That's the way I view you. You were the one that introduced me, but also the one that was real along this whole path. That was my kind of like my trusted advisor, if you will, my mentor. I introduce you as my mentor often, and even in the intro, introduced mentor. So
you're too sweet, man.
Yeah, dude. No,
I feel like I've learned so much from you too, man. Like, this process has really opened up my eyes to, like how much can be possible within one's life. Frankly, I see the way that you're able to manage your time with your family and, with your other job before, when you were doing that. And I always really admired how you were able to wear so many hats and, be able to jump back and forth between all of these different worlds, where I'm someone who just kind of like, like I have to be in the, like, in what I'm doing, or else like I'll just get completely spun out of control. So
yeah, it's an interesting skill. It's funny. One of the insights I had just today is, when I was working, I used to be in-house counsel at a software company, and every moment that was not with my family was probably spent in Discord and or group chats about NFTs or Web3.
Yeah.
Or preaching to somebody about it over coffee. And I've been now 6 weeks since I left my job, and I think I'm actually spending less time in Discord. I'm starting a business here, right? Like there's a podcast, there's other things I'm doing, there's coaching that I'm doing for certain corporate organizations coming up soon. Like, it's just ways to reflect my passion and my beliefs about this space upon other people. Yeah. And most of those are still not facilitated through Discord, right? I'm not going to go pick up a corporate client in Discord. The people that are in Discord in my communities already understand what Web3 is, right? Yeah. But I'm trying to get more people into that, and to be in communities like the ones that you like, the ones that we are in together, the ones that almost appreciate the lulls, right?
Totally.
Those lulls are reserved for getting to know your community, figuring out, reflecting on how projects did. This morning, you would appreciate this. I think you may have tried to play this game for a little while. Did you ever get involved with Boonji?
No, I've never even heard of it.
It was like, God, what was the artist's name? I can't remember, but he was a fine art sculptor. Was coming out with an NFT that's like the helmet with the art in the background, like the space helmet, astronaut's helmet. And it was hype. I mean, it's just like crazy. And like, I tried to submit some derivatives, trying to get on the whitelist. And I'm like, you know what? Every time this happens, it goes like this. So if I really like the art, right, and I'm not caught up in the hype, am I not going to have a better opportunity, cost of capital, by waiting? Well, fast forward to today, a friend of mine who will be coming on the show at some point too, TJ, Did you know you could burn 5 Boongies to get a super Boongie?
Oh God.
And I look at the price of Boongies, 0.15, right? ETH. So these things fizzle out. So you can appreciate are you getting into this? And you see people like the new individuals in our Discord, when they first get in there, you see that excitement, right?
Oh yeah, man.
And I feel like it's like our duty to embrace them, but it also at the same time, give them a reality check, right?
For sure.
And let them know there will always be more projects. It seems like this project is everything right now.
Yeah, it's true. It's easy. It's just to gotta get like, taken for a ride in some of these projects. There is so much like positivity and even like toxic positivity around that you kind of lose sight of how much time you're spending or how much money you're investing in some of these things that will inevitably just go to zero. I'm like, if you learn something, if you're having fun, that's one thing. But if you're doing it because you think that it's going to change your life the same way the apes did, then
you're just gambling.
You should reevaluate, what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to turn to kind of the closing of this, and I want to talk a little bit about the near-term and long-term vision for yourself. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly that you see in the next 6 months or so, and then what are your dream best cases and dream worst cases a couple years down the line?
For sure. Okay, so with any market as volatile as this, we're in for some more crashes. We're in for some serious market cycles. We are definitely still early with this stuff, and there's so many people who still just don't understand it or don't have the patience to figure it out. And I am so excited about the surprises that are around the corner. Like, I think that's like the thing that I'm the most curious about in general in life is looking for those moments where I am amazed or kind of just smacked with a realism that challenges everything that I thought I knew about the world. And I think there's so much opportunity for that within NFTs and with collecting and, with these different airdrops that are going to happen. I'm very much looking forward to the next airdrop that's going to just change our lives. Have all of us just completely explode with enthusiasm and excitement that brings a lot of liquidity into the NFT space, which that can happen from a number of different resources at this point. Just getting no, but imagine if the very obvious ones of Foundation or MetaMask or OpenSea or any of these just interfaces that we use on a day-to-day basis that could send some kind of governance tokens to those participants and users. And that's something that I've really come to value, is just rewarding the people that are utilizing your work or your platform. Just really kind of how much we are benefiting just by subscribing to the same thoughts.
I call it monetizing participation or socialization.
Yeah. How cool is that, man?
It's never been possible before. It's never.
I'm
it's very speculative
by that. I'm super excited about that. I cannot really wait for right at the beginning of the pandemic, I was playing Animal Crossing all the time. And there's going to be a game like that that's going to be play to earn, and that we're going to be able to get obsessed with and be able to monetize at the same time. And
opposed to paying money.
I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited to be addicted to a game that is, a passive income stream. I very much look forward to that. I also look forward to decentralized content creation, where there's something like a studio DAO, or there's DeFi film, or there are ways where we can take traditional entertainment and decentralize the greenlighting process or the financing of these things to really inject what we would like as the consumers to see in the marketplace. And I think for indie film specifically, this is going to be revolutionary. So I am incredibly excited for that. I'm really excited to like discover a new artist within NFTs and be able to collect their NFT before they win their first Grammy and watch their trajectory. Like, I'm excited to see Pac's first museum retrospective, or, Rafik in the MoMA, exhibited in like, one of their true exhibitions. I don't know. Like, I feel like there's so much to really look forward to when it's all just kind of first getting started. I can't wait to see what happens with Gavin and his career, frankly, and see like what he'll be able to create. It's always just one is better than the next. So, obviously, like, I think that puts a lot of pressure on a lot of creatives and people to perform. But so far, everyone's rising to the occasion. They just, even in the short term, like I'm looking forward to the the other side, whatever the apes metaverse that they're dropping is going to be. And even in the immediate future, like this week, I'm looking forward to this Rafik drop, which I'm super excited about. And
some
I feel
emotions
like
on that one.
Oh, there's just, I mean, it took me a lot to get to the tier that I wanted to be in. But now that I was able to beg, borrow, and trade and steal to get to be able to mint the pieces that I want to mint, I am really happy.
Like a true Catan.
Exactly, man. That game is really where it all started, of course. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that drop. I think that's probably like the drop that I'm like the most looking forward to right now, along with Beans and what Jack is building. I like the BeansDAO project is something that I feel like we've been talking about and working on for so long. At this point, it feels like almost like why would we even give any time to talk about that? However, we need to, because this project is probably this is probably like one of my jobs at this point. I would say is being a member of the BeansDAO with Jack and with you and our awesome team, where it all kind of started again with buying those crypto beans last year, when we all just kind of wanted to support our buddy Jack.
I went, by the way, just so everybody knows, I went through almost the exact same process you went through to get a crypto bean. Yeah. Except for Gavin was not present. It was me and you. And you're like, Jack, crypto beans, check them out. And I'm like, oh, cool. And then I like talked to Jack or played Catan. I was like, wow, what a cool dude.
Yeah.
I'll buy one of those.
Yeah. Just like getting all of our friends to start supporting, was so cool. In a lot
of ways, the BeansDAO could be the realization of the things that you mentioned before that, especially a, decentralized studio or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's the whole point of something like BeansDAO, which, just so everyone knows, is a hard fork of what we call the NounsDAO. They were the OGs in this mechanism and this type of IP management. But what it is, it's completely open source IP, CCO. One NFT is released every 24 hours for an auction. Whoever wins that gets a seat at the table. And 100% of the proceeds from that go to the treasury. And those who win the seats at the table, those who win the NFTs, get to manage that treasury and make proposals on how to spend it, with the ultimate goal being to proliferate the IP and make it ubiquitous, right? So everybody knows what a bean is. I mean, They're pretty freaking cute, man. I mean, there's a reason he's sitting right there over my shoulder, or she, whoever it is, right? Sitting right there. And it's a pretty magical project. And it's something that, you know, you were the earliest back when it was Mashka Labs, but I mean, and brought me in, and we've really just been like the vibe checkers in the community with, you know, obviously you at the lead, and just to see it grow and organically. And there's so much talented people in there that are genuinely interested in how they can help this space and of course themselves, but this space, right? Like, for sure, to see that and put some spending power behind it. What it does is it really helps us to come to fruition, like a self-fulfilling ecosystem that can provide a means, right? But also let you realize your dreams, right?
Totally.
A means to your dreams, if you will.
Yeah,
it's means to your dreams with the beans. Is that a soundbite? Just saying.
Yeah, dude, growing dreams with beans.
Yeah. And you know, just to kind of wrap up a little bit, I think I don't know if my eyes were captured when you mentioned a specific thing, but you said something along the lines of allowing the decentralized studio or having a decentralized studio will really almost take the filter off of creativity. And to me, that's the biggest promise, right? Yeah, this isn't, to me, this is an enlightenment, right? This is like creators truly owning what they do. And the way that we're doing that is it's now flatter, right? It's now a much more flatter architecture. It was not possible before, but now it is. And what does that mean for creative genius, right? Or just pent up creativity that some of us would never even think twice about. I mean, how many people are in our community that were ex-corporate design people and are now have produced multiple pieces of art, multiple NFTs, made good money, doing it inside the space? It's very common. To see those, sure, they would not have had that opportunity but for this space, right? And now we get to hang out with them.
Right.
Well, cool. I appreciate the time. Do you have any closing thoughts? Also, let us know how we can get in touch with you, because I know you've shared a lot of valuable perspectives about the art side of NFTs.
Please do not get in touch with me. I have no interest in getting in touch with anyone to listen to this. No, I mean, like my Twitter messages, I think, are open to anyone. I get so much spam in there. Like, I wish people just had more tact with trying to get your attention instead of like, hey, check out my NFT, please buy. What do you think? You know, it's like, dude, come on. But yeah, I feel like I'm very easy to get in touch with and chat with, and I don't like to be shilled anything, or kind of, I can tell when someone's being disingenuous. But when someone's like trying to ask something or learn, or, you know, need some advice or anything, I'm always there for anything. Like with film, with anything with collecting art or any of this stuff, like I feel like I'm quite open to any new young voices who are looking to connect, like minds looking to connect.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Heck, I appreciate it, Josh. This has been excellently fun, and I hope we can have you on again. I really like the idea of continuing the discussion as this space moves forward. We're going to have tons of new material. So
great, man. It'd be a lot of fun. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope that this was everything that you wanted it to be. Yeah. Awesome.
Great, dude. All right. Thanks.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for joining Web3 with me. Make sure to follow us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review, as it'll help us reach more people. If you want to connect with me personally, you can find me on Twitter @offedge_. Thanks for vibing in the verse with me, and hope you'll join us next time.